Pick a random hour this week. There's an 81% chance that Apple has no price. Not a low price, no price. The stock closed. The last trade froze on the tape, and it just sits there, untouched, until the opening bell reprints it tomorrow. The most watched stock on Earth spends most of its life as a screenshot. And here's the math, boring on purpose. US markets are open 9:30 to 4, 5 days a week. That's about 32 hours out of 168. Call it 19% awake, 81% frozen. Now, put an Apple Perpetual future on chain that never closes. 24/7, 365. No expiry, no weekend, no closing bell. That's what Ondo Perps switched on, which leaves the only question worth asking. What is that perp pricing during the 81% of the week the stock is frozen? It tracks the stock. That's the reflex answer. It's also wrong. There's nothing to track. The stock isn't moving. It isn't tracking a price, it's making one. And that falls out of a single property. A perpetual future is synthetic exposure. No delivery, no settlement date, no moment where someone hands you a real share. It just pays you the difference between where you opened and where you closed, held in line by a funding rate. That one design choice, no delivery, is what unshackles it from market hours. A real share of Apple can only trade when the exchange is open because it has to settle through that plumbing. Perp needs none of that. It needs exactly two things: someone willing to go long and someone willing to go short. That's it. So during market hours, the perp behaves. Live stock, arbitrageurs watching the gap, funding doing its job. Then 4 p.m. hits, the bell rings, and the tether goes slack. No live stock, no new prints, and yet the perp is still open, still quoting a number. So where does that number come from? From the only thing left in the room: order flow. The longs, the shorts, and the balance of pressure between them. When the tape is closed, the perp stops being a mirror of the stock and becomes a live, running estimate of it. That is the product. Now, before anyone calls this a crypto revolution, none of this is new. Traditional finance has wrestled with the closed market problem since the 90s. S&P E-mini futures have traded almost around the clock since 1997. When something breaks at 2 a.m., the cash market can't respond. The future can. That's price discovery in the dark, and the deepest market on the planet has worked this way for 25 years. So if futures already did this, what is Ondo actually adding? 3 things, and they compound. 1. Single names, not baskets. Index futures give you the S&P, 500 companies blended into an average. Ondo quotes a live, always-on price on Apple, Nvidia, Tesla, each on its own. Discovery per company, not per basket. 2. Genuinely always on. And this is the part most people miss. Even the mighty E-mini closes on weekends. For roughly 48 hours a week, traditional finance has no live price for US equities anywhere. Not the cash market, not the futures. Ondo runs 365. Saturday afternoon, every traditional venue on Earth shut, and there's still a live, moving price on-chain. Nobody has had that, ever. 3. It's permissionless and collateralized by the assets themselves. No brokerage account, no futures license. And because it's built on Ondo's tokenized stock rails, your tokenized equities can be posted as margin. That's a capital structure that simply doesn't exist in the futures world. But here's the thing. 24/7 is the easiest claim in the world to slap on a landing page. Ondo isn't even the first to say it. Genuine off-hours pricing means a venue that makes a price when the tape goes dark, not one that just reads a stale feed. And 4 design choices decide whether it actually can. 1. It's an order book, not a pool. Ondo Perps runs on order book depth backed by market maker capital, not an automated pool funded by a stablecoin vault, which means spreads scale with the depth of the real market, not the size of some liquidity pot. For an equity perp, that is the entire difference between a price that means something at 3 a.m. and one that doesn't. 2. The liquidity isn't conjured from zero. Ondo Perps sits on top of Ondo Global Markets, the tokenized equity spot system this same team already runs. It isn't a new venue trying to summon equity liquidity out of nothing. It's a derivatives layer built onto an ecosystem that already has users and market access in place. 3. The closed market is treated as a first-class problem. Ondo publishes explicit weekend mechanics, spelling out how funding and mark prices behave while the underlying is shut. That's the tell. The off-hours case isn't a patch for later, it's the surface they designed around first. 4. Collateral and hedging live in one place. Your tokenized equities can be posted as margin, so you can hedge a tokenized stock position by opening the opposite perp, same asset, same venue, without fragmenting your capital or routing through a stablecoin first. That one is genuinely hard to find anywhere else. Set against the field, that's a specific bet. General purpose venues like Hyperliquid let anyone deploy a perp on shared infrastructure. But the oracle and the liquidity design are left to whoever spins it up, and none of it is purpose-built for real-world assets. And the crypto-native perp DEXs, your DYDX, your GMX, largely don't touch equities at all. Ondo's wager is that a vertically built venue, its own order book, its own connected spot liquidity, its own collateral layer, prices a stock at midnight better than a general purpose factory or a thin synthetic feed. And it carries honest trade-offs. Be clear-eyed about them. The matching engine runs off-chain, inside a hardware enclave checked by an attester network. Fast, like a centralized exchange, but not the fully on-chain execution some DeFi users want. The tokenized equity collateral is whitelist gated, for now, and the venue is new. The things that actually decide whether an equity perp is any good, depth, spreads, clean liquidations when a stock gaps after a weekend of one-sided flow, all of that still has to be proven under stress, not on a launch day asset list. And one caution that sits over the whole idea, that off-hours price is powerful, but it is an opinion, not a fact. Liquidity is thinner when the underlying is closed, wider spreads, moves that exaggerate and unwind. Reconciliation risk is real. The gap between where the perp trades at 3 a.m. and where the stock opens can go either way. On a 20x position, that gap doesn't need to be big to end the trade, because the hard part of this whole category was never listing Apple. It was pricing Apple at 3 a.m. on a Sunday. And Ondo Perps is one of the first venues built specifically to try.